You know, after half a decade of Twilight fever, I can honestly say without a doubt that I am sick of vampires, and I am so glad to see it end. Unfortunately, I'm not exactly out of the forest of blood-sucking demons just yet, as an anime called Moon Phase recently fell into my lap. So, what the heck? Moon Phase, or Tsukiyomi Moon Phase, is a 26-episode anime series based off the manga written and illustrated by Keitaro Arima for Comic Gum magazine. The story is about a young vampire girl named Hazuki who runs away from her castle in Germany with the help of a paranormal photographer by attempting to make him her servant. So, judging by the opening credits sequence, this looks to be a very cute and funny anime series on par with Karin, so let's take a look. So our story begins with a young girl named Luna living inside a large castle, and honestly, after watching that really cutesy opening credits sequence, this really dark imagery is rather jarring. So we cut to our main character, Kohei Morioka, who works for an occult magazine as a paranormal photographer. He and his crew are on an assignment in Germany and discuss sneaking into a haunted castle later that night, which happens to be the very same castle that Luna happens to live in, and whoa! Even though this is a cartoon, are you sure that showing something like that is legal? I mean, look at her. She's got to be at least, what, 12 years old? Keep that little tidbit in mind. It's going to be important later.
You're kidding. You're kidding, right?
So, later that night, Kohei and the group sneak into the castle to take some photographs, and the group happens to send Kohei into the castle all by himself.
Goodbye, Charlie. Yeah, goodbye, Charlie.
Goodbye, what?
And he's down.
But while lost inside the castle, he happens to run into Luna, who introduces herself to him as Hazuki and,
That's disgusting.
But before she does whatever she was planning to do to him, seriously, I don't want to know, and coming dangerously close to tentacle hentai, the vines on the castle walls come alive and separate the two of them, which happens to be controlled by Luna's butler. She's finally a responsible adult! However, Hazuki manages to break free and bite Kohei on the neck, revealing that she is in fact a vampire and tries to get him to help her escape from the castle.
What a twist!
In all honesty, I almost feel sorry for the guy. This pushy little vampire is forcing him to do something he could very easily end up with 55 years to life in prison for. Kohei at first does the sensible thing and refuses to cooperate with her, but after seeing that she is sick and tired of constantly being alone and living like a prisoner in her own castle, and thus feeling sorry for her, he decides,
Sure, why not?
"You are an idiot!" So he manages to aid and abet in her own kidnapping by defeating the butler, and she decides to follow him back to his home in Japan in hopes of finding her long-lost mother. So let me get this straight. A 12-year-old vampire girl lures in a 21-year-old paranormal photographer, kisses him, attempts to make him her slave, and decides to run away with him. That has got to be the most bizarre Amber Alert I've ever heard.
Yeah, he does live with his grandfather, but the age gap between our two main leads is so big you can fly an airplane through it. It honestly is still a cause for concern.
Well, look at it this way. Don't think of it as a kidnapping, think of it as a bizarre homestay program.
Hazuki is a young vampire princess who decides to run away from home in order to find her long-lost mother, who apparently abandoned her to live in Japan against the wishes of the remaining members of her family. As a vampire princess, she is very spoiled and egotistical, and often uses her vampire powers to entice people into doing whatever she wants. However, when she doesn't get her way, she tends to be very short-tempered and whiny, which often causes headaches for Kohei and the others. She is also incredibly stubborn, which forces the members of her remaining family to attempt all sorts of rather questionable tactics in order to convince her to come back home.
That makes perfect sense to me! After all, who would want their 12-year-old daughter living with a 21-year-old guy they hardly even know?
Although Kohei Morioka specializes as a paranormal photographer, he actually comes from a long line of mediums and spiritualists, although he is often compared to as the black sheep of the family due to his lack of psychic powers. Even so, the effects of a vampire bite mysteriously seem to have no effect on him, despite having a more familial relationship rather than a romantic one with Hazuki. Thank God! The vampires in Hazuki's family see his relationship with her as a threat to the structure of vampire society, and would like nothing less than to see him out of the picture.
Oh, please. If you think Kohei is a threat to vampire society and the reputation of vampires everywhere, you haven't read any of Stephenie Meyer's stuff, have you?